Turn on the news, there's an airplane crash, there's a ferry boat capsizing, another Amber Alert for a child that's missing or even worse, been killed. But why so much suffering? And why so much pain in the world in which we live? I mean, many times we understand that the wicked should suffer for a reward to what they've done. But when it happens to good people, or the righteous, that can be a stumbling block to many. Even the most mature believer at times will struggle to accept or even perceive God's purpose in adversity and suffering. For these are some of the oldest questions in Christianity, but this last weekend it hit home once again, as a dear friend of mine is battling every day as he grieves the death of his wife to this COVID pandemic. He said truly the hardest time of his life. Now, as one family shared the miraculous survival of a husband and a father, my friend shared the loss of his wife. So there's questions like how does one survive the same set of circumstances and another doesn't? I mean, one family here has tears of joy while another the tears of great grief. But even in the midst of that, my friend was able to sing a song, I Won't Complain. And he said, I could, but I won't, for God has been good to me. I'm Stuart Welch, pastor here at Life Connection Church in Modesto, California. And once again, I find myself wrestling and tearing through the scriptures with this difficult study of suffering and adversity in the lives of so many. Sometimes I find that we react with anger, and others we second guess God for our difficulties. Now, many people, they don't even have a clue of what it feels like to grieve, to lose someone dear to them. And it's hard for them to have empathy for others. Or you may be like me, we're people that are well acquainted with grief, but we're in good company. For the Bible describes Jesus as a man despised and rejected, a man of many sorrows and acquainted with grief. In the Gospel of John, we read about Jesus coming upon a woman as she weeps, and those with her were weeping. And Jesus wept with them. See, oftentimes we may wonder, where's God? Or why is God silent? But in my recent reading in the book of Esther, where, let me remind you, God is not even mentioned in the 9 chapters. God has not abandoned them nor us. And just because his name was not mentioned, his presence was there. So you may be feeling lonely, but remember this, faith is not a feeling. It's a choice to believe and trust in the sovereignty and the providential election of God. So it is my prayer for you and heartfelt sentiment that God would provide comfort and strength to every man and woman, boy and girl that find themselves in deep despair and grief. That you receive fresh insight into the role of suffering in the Christian life. And may you, by God's grace, be conformed even more to the image of Christ as you understand better the refining power that pain and adversity exercise in a believer's life. I think back to the times when my own father died suddenly. I had people actually letting me know, good thing you're a pastor. But just because I stand in the position of a pastor, my heart was that of a son. And the pain and the bewilderment, it just took the wind out of my sails. I was just deflated, derailed. Some would even say knocked out of alignment. And those of you who are listening who have experienced hurting or suffering, you know that it gets weary after a while. And we can cry out with the Apostle Paul, who said, remove this thorn from me. Even Jesus prayed, let this cup be removed. He was so physically and emotionally weary that an angel was sent to strengthen him. Job tells us that man is born for trouble. Often, however, the child of God hears nothing from heaven. And this can be a particularly difficult time. And it's precisely at this time that the Comforter, the most precious, the Shepherd, the Lily of the Valley, the Rock of Ages, our shelter in the time of storm, comes to our rescue. Now imagine the husband who takes fresh flowers to the grave, who weeps uncontrollably when he thinks of the wife's smile the first time he brought her flowers. Are the tears a sense of spiritual immaturity? No, they're the mark of a man who loved his wife. His heart is broken, but his soul rests in the Comforter and the promises. You see, peace is not the absence of pain. This is not promised us. Otherwise, God would have no need to send the Comforter. So the conclusion should always be that it is possible, and actually God's desire, that we do more than merely survive or barely tolerate a season of suffering or testing. You see, the Lord wants the experience to be a positive one in the end, one that strengthens and refines our faith. So my prayer for you today is that you would feel the loving arms of God wrapped all around you. And that would help us the next time that we tell someone about Christ. I urge you, listen carefully. See where the brokenness is and how Christ can put that person's life back together. Know this, my friends, God does not comfort us to make us comfortable, but to make us comforters. If I really had the time to go deep into this message, I would tell the story of Annie J. Flint. Look her up when you have time. She was a great writer of poems and hymns, as she was crippled, extremely disabled, with rigid joints, and could barely move her head. But even out of this crucible of suffering, she administered comfort to others as God Himself comforted her. Here's a brief excerpt. God gives more grace when the burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength when the labors increase. To added afflictions He addeth His mercy. To multiple trials His multiplied peace. His love has no limits. His grace has no measure. His power no boundary known unto man. For out of His infinite riches in Jesus, He giveth and giveth and giveth again. So if you need comfort, connect with us today. We want to be the arms and the hands of Jesus and support you as you journey through this season of grief. Or perhaps you are now a comforter. Well, we need you now like never before. So pray on teaming with us to provide comfort, strength, and encouragement to others. Now, if we can be of assistance to you, connect with us online at lifeconnection4christ.org. You can email our office at office@lifeconnectionforchrist.org. Comment on our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Call us 209-522-3583. Or even more, drop in. Join us on Sunday mornings at 9:30. Just being in the presence of other believers and other people can be a soothing, a healing to your very soul. Wednesday nights we gather at 5:30 to have a meal. Come and sit and fellowship with us. And then we break out for some tremendous classes. Our kids, connection, our youth program. And you have women connecting in Christ. We have praying for your adult children. We have forged, iron sharpens iron, a men's small group. So whatever your need may be, we have something for it. And we invite you out that we may be the hands and feet of God to help comfort you in your time of grief, suffering, and adversity, that God may restore you and set you back on your journey to be a comforter to others. I'm Pastor Stuart Welch. with Life Connection Church, Modesto, California.